It has also recently become one of my favorite series of all time. Overall, I think it is the synopsis causing all this confusion, all these problems. Of all the series that I have completed in 2024, it was the first that I can proudly say it has become my favorite. I low-key don't understand why this series got so much hype. This series is just way too ahead of our time. Hi guys, this is Dan. Welcome back to my channel. Today, let's do something a bit more controversial because I want to talk about are these popular books worth the hype or not. I have picked up a total of 9 books to talk about, and I will mainly put them into 2 groups. One is about the older titles and the other one is the new release in 2024. So firstly, I will talk about all the titles or the series that are not published in 2024, and then I will move on to talk about all the new release in this year to see whether they worth the hype or not. So if you enjoyed this controversial video, don't forget to give it a like. Subscribe to my channel, Dandacy, so you won't miss any fun bookish video from me. Why not also share your unpopular opinions about hype books down in the comment below? Did you find any new favorite because of this hype, or do you find them all just like overhyped? Shall we begin with all the older titles? Now when I say popular books, they are not just my opinion. I asked Google to search for some popular fantasy books for me. And from all these answers, I have picked those that I have already finished. Otherwise, I can't give my comment about them. So if you can't find your popular books in my list, don't blame me, ask Google why, or maybe it's simply because I haven't read them yet. The first one I want to talk about is Jade City by Fonda Lee, the first book of the Green Bone Saga. I have just recently finished this trilogy and I mean, oh my god, why didn't I check this series out earlier? This series would forever hold a special place in my heart. Green Bone Saga is an Asian-inspired fantasy that is set in the world of K-Con. In here, Jade is so important because if you have the right training, Jade could grant you some superhuman abilities. And in the later books, Jade also plays an important role in international trade. In this series, we will mainly focus on the Cow family, the leading family of one of the biggest clans in K-Con, the No Peak clan, and they have to win over their rival, the Mountain clan. They may try to train more young warriors and fight, taking over others' territories or even finding allies overseas. We will follow quite a lot of POVs from this Cow family, let's say the clan leader, who is like the pillar in the story, and his name is Lan, with his siblings like Hilo and Shay as well as their cousin Anden. Now I have completed the whole series, and if we are just looking at the first book, Jade City, to be honest, I wouldn't say it is like great. I think the first book just like takes some time to get to the main part of the story, but once it hit that point, it will be perfect. And then the second and the third book are just like masterpiece. There are so many unexpected turns of events, like in this kind of clan war. Nothing is predictable and no one is safe for certain. The one thing that Fonda Lee is so good at is writing the characters and the development throughout this whole series. We will be following the Cow family since the first book when they are still green. No, I mean green as in young, not just like the Jade. On this journey, they have gone through a lot. Family, friends, romance, business, and they are like kind of trapped in this kind of role for the whole clan. What they want to do and what they should do for the clan. There are always conflicts between what these family members want to do and what people would expect them to do for the greatness of the clan to make the right decision for the people. Everyone in this Cow family has just gone through a lot. In the final book, time moves quite fast, but with this we can see how the cows put what they have learned from their own experience to teach the younger ones. Overall, I would say that Jade City alone, it is like an average setup, but all the sequels are just like packed of unexpected dramas and also character development. It has also recently become one of my favorite series of all time, So if you haven't checked this series out, go and do it now. It is just like so emotional. I mean it. The next old title I want to talk about is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, the first book of the Gentleman Bastards. In this book, of course, we're gonna follow Locke Lamora, who is a con artist. He led a group of thieves called the Gentleman Bastards, who specialize in elaborate heists and cons targeting the wealthiest and the powerful citizen in Cornwall. But with the Great King, a powerful criminal figure, taking over the underworld, Locke finds himself drawn into this really dangerous game of revenge and power that would threaten his own life and the life of his crew members. To be honest, I did finish this book, but I ended up DNF the whole series. There are a couple of reasons why I didn't bond with the book, but mainly it is down to the writing style. In this book, there are quite a lot of flashbacks about the past of Locke Lamora, how he grew up, who did he train with, and his relationship with the Gentleman Bastards. But then I just find these flashbacks a bit here and there, taking me out of what is as in happening now, but they were interesting. I might be wrong here because I read this book long time ago. The flashbacks are like foreshadowing, hinting the destiny of the Gentleman Bastards, and then we will know which member was left with Locke Lamora, and it is kind of like we would already know the outcome of the story. Also, when Scott Lynch described a new scene or new setting, it sort of reminds me of other classic fantasy like Lord of the Rings, where we will have like a whole description about this new place in the beginning of a chapter. I think there would be a better way to do so rather than just being descriptive, so I didn't really enjoy his writing style. The story itself is fun and creative, but the writing is not just for me. I mean, if you can't gel with the writing style of one author, there's no point really continuing the whole series, so I end up DNFing it. I can get why people like it, but unfortunately, it is just not for me. Okay, the next book is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang, the first book of this series with the same name, The Poppy War. I read this whole trilogy in the first half of 2024 and it has also become one of my favorites. This is also an Asian-inspired fantasy, or to be more specific, it is a Chinese-inspired, which is based on the Qing dynasty in the 19th century. In the first book, Rin is our protagonist. She was a war orphan, but with her hard work and dedication, she got a chance to study in a war academy called Sign-Guard. But Rin and all other students won't expect there would be an invasion from the Muginese Federation. In this war, Rin would realize her potential as a shaman, a channel to the spiritual realm and a link to a mythical creature, Phoenix. In the first book, she will fight against the Muginese Federation, and then the second and the third book is more like a civil war. This whole trilogy is quite graphic and disturbing, and Rin, our main character, is not that reliable either. There will be political scheming, battles, cultural nods to the Chinese history. I did enjoy how R.F. Kuang taken a significant part of Chinese history and turned it into her own fantasy world. Let's say the Sino-Japanese War and the Chinese Civil War. Some of the graphic scenes in the stories is actually inspired by these two wars. Then inject some fantasy elements like the shaman to make the whole story more dramatic and impactful. There will be explanation of these fantasy elements from the perspective of Chinese culture, which I think is smart because you're putting what people believe in the past in China into a fictional fantasy world. Also in a fantasy world, I totally appreciate how R.F. Kuang has included the discussion of certain topics like gender and poverty. These two, I can tell R.F. Kuang has done lots of research about how certain people were perceived at that historical period of time. Of all the series that I have completed in 2024, it was the first that I can proudly say it has become my favorite. Again, I know that this series could be quite sad, brutal, and disturbing, and not everyone's cups of tea. but turns out it is for me. The next one is also an Asian-inspired fantasy, and it is The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, the first book of the Dandanian dynasty. I haven't finished the whole series yet. Currently, I am just 2.5 books in, so take my comment about this series with a pinch of salt. It is not my final verdict yet. This series at first is based on the Han Dynasty in Chinese history, which is around 200 BC. And in the first book, we will mainly focus on two characters, Kuni and Mata, in this chaotic world of Dara. With the passing of the old emperor, let's see, can I remember his name correctly? It was Rion, and then turned into Mapidari. I hope I'm right. No one is strong enough to control all these days in Dara. Everyone wants to seek this chance and become the next ruler. Kuni and Mata are the two rising forces, from close friends to rivals. In the first book, we will follow a series of battles, mind games, politics, tactics, myths, history, and silk pun technology, something that Ken Liu has come up with the inspiration of Asian technology. Then in the next 3 books, we will move on and focus on another war, which is like an invasion from a foreign race. I can't really give out too much here because if I say too much, it would definitely spoil your reading experience. So here, I'll just pause and let you find out what's gonna happen after the first book. I finished more than half of this series, and my overall comment about it is, it's so dry. Ken Liu's writing style, I wouldn't say it is like flamboyant in the sense. Sometimes I do feel like I am reading a really detailed bibliography, looking at how everyone is up to in this world of Dara. It could get poetic, don't get me wrong, but quite a lot of times there will be dry scientific and engineering explanation about this kind of steampunk technology, the tactics they are playing in a battlefield, the mechanism behind certain machinery. So overall, I would say these parts could be quite dull. But what I did enjoy in the first book is the historical reference. Like I said, this first book is inspired by the Han Dynasty. I am familiar with that part of history. Even so, I still feel engaged in these battles between Kuni and Mata, even though I know the final outcome. I like all the politics, ambitions, mind games, all the tactics that have been used in this series. All the characters we're gonna follow in these 4 books, no, for me it's 2.5 books, are quite complex. They got their secrets, they got their own history to make them the person they are now. They got things that they have learned from their own experience. All these characters make the whole reading experience more dramatic, more chaotic in a sense. Again, as someone who loved this part of the Dandanian dynasty, the writing style I understand is not everyone's cup of tea. If you can get into it, great, you will enjoy the whole series. But if you find it difficult to get through, don't force yourself to like it or don't force yourself to complete a book. I would say it is like the signature of Ken Liu's writing style, and it will be the same throughout the series. It will still be dry. Overall, I like the first book the most. I enjoyed the Dandanian dynasty, but not as much as the Greenbone Saga or the Poppy War. The last book I have for the old titles is a very well-known one, and it is The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan, the first book of the Wheel of Time series. Now, I think I am on book 8, so I haven't really completed the whole series. So once again, take my comment with a pinch of salt because it is not my final answer about the whole series. If we are just looking at the first book, the plot is kind of simple. It is like a very classic epic fantasy. It is about a group of young people living in middle of nowhere. One of them, Ren, is like the chosen one, but one day their village got attacked by the dark force. Luckily, a very mysterious woman called Maureen and her god Lan come and rescue them. Then they took a really long journey that is full of dangers, and they need to retrieve the Eye of the World, which is like a very powerful source that could either save or destroy the world. Now, if we are just talking about the Eye of the World, Don't hate me if I say it. It feels to me a very typical setup for a classic epic fantasy with like the typical tropes. I wouldn't say I was really into it at that point, but the series did get better and better. I think the turning point would be the Fire of Heaven or the Lord of Chaos. More pieces are on the board. There are more players, more parties in the game that got their own agenda or maybe their own way of living. We also have more knowledge about this world and what our chosen one is fighting against. The whole plot would definitely getting more interesting and entertaining and at the same time more complex. And I mean, if not, why I bother to keep reading it? So I would say the first book is pretty average, but don't get me wrong, the series will get better. So here are all the older titles I want to talk about. Now we can move on to talk about all the popular new release of 2024, and I have picked a total of 4 fantasy books. The first one I have is The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan, the first book of the Last Legacy series. In here we follow Lucan, who found out that his father was murdered. With the clues left by his dad, Lucan set off to this dangerous city called Safrona, hoping that he could solve this dying message from his father. In this city, very luckily, Lucan met a street rat called Flea. With her local knowledge, they would try to solve this riddle together, but find out that there is a bigger political scheme in Safrona. I did enjoy this book and I had a fun ride with it. It is giving me a bit of Uncharted vibe when we are exploring different parts of Safrona. Let's say the massive tournament, all the parties and the underground. Along the way, we will meet a lot of dangerous individuals, so Lucan has to figure out which one to trust or which one to manipulate. The whole adventure is just really entertaining and really engaging. I do like the chemistry between Lucan and Flea. They love making fun and jokes to each other, which make the whole journey more interesting. I also appreciate all the questions we will have along this adventure would definitely get an answer by the end of the story. Overall, I love this one and I honestly can't wait to read the sequel, which gonna come out in next October, I think. This one definitely worth the hype. Siren time. The next new release I have is The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, the first book of Shadow of the Leviathan series. Now, this one is interesting because it is not Asian-inspired fantasy, it is not epic fantasy, but a mystery one. In here, we will follow Dean, an assistant to an investigator called Anna. Dean is an engraver, meaning that he could remember every detail of a crime scene so that he could report everything to Anna. The story begins with a really weird murder of a government official. After reporting to Anna, they have come up with a decision to investigate another city. There seems to be a bigger political plot in here. What I do like about this book is the mystery element. We are like partnering up with Dean to go to the crime scene together to find out anything unusual and collect the clues along the way. Bear in mind, it is not like your usual murder case because there will be some fantasy elements to it. So it will make the whole case more dramatic in a sense. I found the writing really approachable. There will be questions about these cases along the way, and the characters will keep reminding us these details. All these tiny dots we have collected at last will become a very clear full picture of these murders. I am happy with how this case ends. Everything makes sense to me, and there is a really logical explanation about what is going on, and it is quite easy to follow. But the only thing I didn't bond with is Anna, this investigator. The way she solved the murder is like after Dean reporting to her, she basically know everything and know what will happen, but she keep it to herself. And then at last, it would be like Poirot, she would tell the truth to everyone. But she is not as cute and lovely as Poirot, I'm sorry. Don't get me wrong, I still like this book. I can't wait to read any more books about Dean and Anna in this world and solving more cases, because it looks like there will be. The next new release I have is 5 Broken Blades by Mike Collin, the first book of the Broken Blades series. This one is a Korean-inspired fantasy. In this book, we will follow a group of thieves, criminals, or even an exiled prince. Together, they will try to take down the God King in Yusan. They are criminals who got their own agenda, so they have to work through lies and deception to achieve this goal, and there is only one crown to take. From this synopsis, you would expect this book to be quite dark. It's about mind games, trying to manipulate each other to form secret alliance or maybe hurting each other. But turns out it is a romantasy. I mean, what? I am not gonna lie, we're gonna follow 6 POVs in total, and they are going to be shifted into 3 pairs of lovers. This book is long already, and we are introduced to 6 new characters, which is quite a lot, let alone with all the world buildings. So the romance feels to me a bit compromised and instant. They could simply just be love at first sight, or these characters may have some history before. So I don't think romance, this element, is executed well. Then for the plot, all the mind games, all the deception, all the lies, there will be more in the second half of the book when finally all our characters are coming together and they have to think about their own agenda or goal. But this part feels to me a bit like minor. It is not like a main course as it is said in the synopsis. I expect this one might be quite dark, but turns out there's a lot of romance. Also, I think the writing is a bit average. To be fair, I don't normally complain about the writing of a book because
English is not my first language. I don't have that knowledge to critique the writing style.
But I just find quite a lot of times the chapters are on the shorter side. Look at how many POVs the author want to include. And then the paragraphs are usually quite short, and the sentences feels to me in a sense quite broken, if you know what I mean. Overall, I think it is the synopsis causing all this confusion, all these problems. They forget to simply put romantasy. And the synopsis just promised so much about the story, and I don't think Mike Collin, I'm not sure is it really her intention or did she write that synopsis, but she just didn't execute what is promised on paper well enough. We all know the sequel is coming, so I just don't understand why Mike Collin is in such a rush to ship 6 characters. I low-key don't understand why this series got so much hype, because I ended up DNF the whole series. The last one I have on this list is a recent release, which is Long Live Evil by Sarah Rees Brennan, the first book of the Time of Iron series. This one sounds really interesting. Who doesn't want to live in their own favorite fantasy world? But in this book, Ray, our main character, suffers from cancer. One day, a mysterious woman offers her a deal. If she could retrieve this mysterious flower in her favorite fantasy world, she would be cured from cancer. She has heard about and read about this book, so she agrees with this deal. She was teleported to this fantasy world, but turns out she is not going to be the hero in the story, but the villain stepsister called Lady Rehela. What makes it worse is that this character is going to be executed in the next day. So with the knowledge about this world, Ray has to think about a way to dodge this execution and form a group of villains that could help her to retrieve this mysterious flower. On paper, this one sounds really entertaining, really interesting. Sometimes I just don't want to read simply epic fantasy. I want something more entertaining, more chaotic in a sense. But there are some problems stopping me from loving this book. I think the first one is about the clashing of the elements. In this book, we will have the classic world building of a fantasy book, and then we will have the modern sarcasm of Ray. Also, there will be flashbacks about her cancer journey. All of them putting together is just a bit experimental to me. I don't think the balance is right. Sometimes Ray would even throw some modern words like Netflix, Beyonce, Madonna, or even a quote from Look What You Make Me Do by Taylor Swift, the bridge. The old Taylor can't come to the phone right now. Why? 'Cause she's dead. I mean, when you read it in a fantasy book, how would you feel? It is just way too beyond my understanding about what a fantasy world should be. Also, Ray just partially know about this story because of her cancer treatment. So when she tried to help the plot to develop, it would turn into a mistake and making the whole story goes to the wrong way. But Ray didn't learn a lesson and keep messing with the plot or even make some rookie villain error. Ray is just dumb, guys. And I wish there could be more villainous to the villains or more depth to them. Not just simply saying like, I am villain so we are like this. We are villain and they are the heroes so we are like mistreated. I want more about them. So I ended up DNF the whole series. This series is just way too ahead of our time. So here are all the popular fantasy books I want to talk about. I quite agree quite a lot of the older titles, they do worth the hype. But for the new release in this year, they are a bit divided. I know that it can get a bit controversial about certain books, but I hope you understand. Reading is quite personal and we can have our own opinions about them. It is fine to do so. You may also want to put your unpopular opinions about popular books down in the comment below. So if you've enjoyed this controversial video, don't forget to give it a like. If you don't want to miss any content from me, make sure you have subscribed to my channel. I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.